Sharon, Midday Motivation. Today is Friday, April the 1st, 2022. Yes, it's April Fool's Day. Don't let anyone fool you. I'm not going to fool you today. I'm going to get right to the straight talk about when to speak and when not to speak. Whew, that's a big topic. And there's a lot to say about it because oftentimes we're just talking. And what are we really saying? And then other times we don't allow ourselves to have a voice when we should, to speak up for things so they don't cause issues in the future. Because what we don't deal with now will definitely come up in the future. So we have to give ourselves a voice to say, what I have to say matters. Because what you do have to say, it does matter. Your opinion is no less or no more than the next person's opinion or your thought or what you have to say about anything. But timing is key. Knowing who you're speaking to, knowing your audience is also key. So there's many other factors that we're going to get into today with our topic, learning when to speak and when not to speak. Again, this is a live episode of Life with Sharon Day Motivation on Friday, April the 1st, 2022, the first day of the second quarter. I hope you are assessing and reassessing your goals and what you want to achieve in this second quarter, as we've been talking about for the past few weeks. So stay on those goals. We're going to continue to talk about that. And I want you guys to update me on how you're doing with those goals as I will update you, because we are all in this together and we're motivating ourselves and then motivating and encouraging one another along the way. And that's what this show is about, to bring everyone together of like minds who are moving in a forward direction. But sometimes we all need encouragement. So it's a jolt in the middle of the day with some strategies, some tips to get us going and continuing to move in the direction we said we want to go to achieve our goals, and some tips to do that. But before we get started with the rest of the show, please, those of you who are watching, and those of you on the replay, this is the Full Life Communications page on Facebook, and it's the Full Life Communications channel on YouTube, and we also are on Instagram. We're just not airing live. Please subscribe to the YouTube channel, Full Life Communications. Click the notification bell, share, and like the video. And on Facebook, like the page and share the video. Thank you for those of you who have been watching the show and sending me encouragement and thanks, and for all that it is that I'm trying to do on this platform. I appreciate you supporting me and sharing your wisdom with me as well. So if you're watching, please share on the feed your comments, your questions, and any tidbits or strategies, tips, whatever they might be that you might have for today's topic. And if you have a suggestion for future topics, email me at fulllifecommunications@gmail.com. fulllifecommunications@gmail.com. Thank you so very much. So now let's get into the heart of the matter, when to speak and when not to speak. Big thought right there. Big thought. And that's what we should be doing. We should be thinking prior to what it is that we're about to say. And if we were to do that, a lot of times we make a better decision about how we say what we're about to say, or if we are even going to say it at all. Because just because you think something doesn't mean you need to speak it. Just because we can doesn't mean we should. Wisdom is the principal thing here. Using wisdom, when to speak and what to say, and then how to say it. Again, wisdom when to speak, what to say, and how we say it. Those are the key ingredients when we speak. Now, when we do speak, what's the tone? We've been talking about assertive communication earlier in the week. What's the tone of our voice? What's the pitch? How are we saying it? Is it with an attitude, an angry tone, a high pitch? All those things matter, because that goes into the nonverbal communication. So even though that's verbal, but it's being the nonverbal of it, let's just say the tone, the pitch, the volume is being read by the person who's hearing what you're saying. So even if you're saying words that don't sound that, say, offensive, but your tone, your volume, your pitch is offensive, then the person you're speaking to is going to take offense, more than likely. So be mindful that how you're saying what you say is congruent. It's lining up and they're matching. And then what the person is reading is going to be in sync with what you're saying. And that works, either way. If I'm saying I'm angry and I'm speaking it angrily, okay, that's lining up. But just because I'm feeling angry doesn't mean I have to behave angrily. I can say I feel angry and I just said it, I'm angry, but I didn't behave demonstrably angry with my tone, pitch, and volume. I just said I'm angry, and then I'll say what I'm angry about. So because my words just express how I'm feeling. I just didn't behave in my tone, etc., how I was feeling. So that's key. Be mindful of how you say what you say when you speak, but definitely give yourself a voice, because what you have to say matters. Again, your opinion, your thoughts, your feelings are no less or more valid than anyone else's. But it's key how you speak that. And then timing is everything. Some things may need to be said, but not right now. And why? What are some of the qualifications for whether it's right now or whether it's later? Well, read the room. Read the room, meaning who's in the room. Whether you know them or not, in certain arenas, say if you're a public speaker, you, of course, may not know everyone in the room, but you can still read the room by the vibe, right? The energy in the room, the faces, the nonverbal communication with what people's body language is saying to you. Read the room. And then with what you're going to say, is this appropriate to say right now? Even though it might be correct, it might be right. But is it appropriate to say right now, given that I've read the room, caught the vibe, distinguished the energy, discern the nonverbals of who's in the room, right? All of those things. Now, you know what? I think it's safe to say what I want to say with this particular instance. Or maybe I shouldn't say that by what I'm looking at and who I'm looking at. Right? So it doesn't matter whether you know the person, you can still read the room, or know the people, you can still read the room. Then, of course, when you know the people with whom you're speaking, then you know if they easily take offense, or if they're more on the passive side or the aggressive side or the assertive side, depending on what you say, how they might respond, because you know them. So, choose your words wisely. Knowing your audience, whether you know them or not, you can discern what's going on with them any given moment by reading them. Someone doesn't have to say something to read them. You can read their posture. You can read the countenance on their face. All their nonverbals are constantly speaking, just like yours are speaking. So let's be more mindful to read the room, the person with whom we're speaking, so we can make a better decision about what we're going to say. And sometimes, okay, I'm still going to say what I'm going to say, but I'm going to say it like this. And so the like this could be, with this person, I'm going to preface what I'm about to say, because they may need a little more tender care, let's just say, in order for it to go over and have the impact, the effect, the desired result that you would like to get. So you know what? Let me preface what I'm about to say. So therefore, when I say it, it doesn't have as great an impact on the negative side. It's not that you even mean it negatively, but people can take things any way they want. So you preface things first to lay a foundation. So when you say what you say, it's like, oh, okay. I get that. And now it went over better than if you didn't lay a foundation and you just said what you said, even though you may have said it in the proper manner. It still goes over well because you prepared the person first with the preface. Now, some people that might not need the preface. You can go straight in, but it's still how you say a thing. How you say it, not what you say. It's always a how and not the what. And then again, being discerning about, it's not the time. It's not the time to bring this up right now, or to say this type of comment on what just transpired. And again, just because you think something doesn't mean you need to say it. And just because it is your right still doesn't mean you need to say it. You have to think about the result that you want to get from this. What kind of result do you want to get? Well, this is the outcome. So in order to get that outcome, the timing is not right. So let me hold off on this. Or you know what? This moment can handle what I'm about to say. Let me just choose my words wisely, as we always should. But again, we're human, we're fallible. We don't always do that. But again, we're living intentionally now. And so by living intentionally, I'm choosing my words much more carefully because I want the result to always be a positive result, even when things may hurt because it was constructive feedback. But sometimes the truth hurts. It doesn't mean it doesn't need to be said, because we grow from constructive feedback. And when it stings, sometimes it's okay. That just lets you know that, what, I need to work on that. And I probably knew that anyway. But, nobody really called me on it too much or at all. But this person cared enough about me to give me the constructive feedback to say that's not a good look or whatever the feedback is they're giving me. And so, you know what? I've known I needed to work on that. Let me do something about it. Because that's not how I want to be perceived. Right? So giving someone constructive feedback is good. But the timing also matters. Reading them, is it time? Will they, even though it's constructive and you're saying it in an assertive manner, are they in a headspace to receive it? And today might not be their day. You already know maybe they're in a bad mood or such and such is going on in the environment or whatever's going on. Make the determination, not just based on because you have a thought, you want to say it. Again, that is your right. But you want your thought, when it's put out there, to have a specific result. You just don't want to let it fall to the ground or fall on deaf ears or to create an argument. So the timing is key. So the onus is on you, the one who is speaking the thought, to discern whether the timing is now or another time might be better based on the variables that I just said to you. Those of you who are watching, I see the numbers there, but I don't see anything in the chat. Please say hello so I can shout you out. And also, too, I'm sure you have some comments because I am not the only one with information and thoughts about when to speak and when not to speak, which is our topic today. I'd love to hear from you. And I want to appreciate you watching, those who are watching live and those who will be watching on the replay. You guys supporting the show, no matter when you watch, is awesome. So I appreciate you so much. And I do want to hear your thoughts on it because, we're all in this together. We all speak. We all have thoughts, opinions, and feelings that we want to share out there. What are some of your specific examples of maybe when you misspoke, or maybe when you were assertive and you spoke up and it had a positive result, or a not so positive result because of the person on the other end? And so maybe you didn't read the room well enough and didn't get the result you want. Share some of your thoughts. Share some of your examples of what it is that's happened to you. Now, let me just say this. If you are watching from someone's page who may have shared the feed, I will only see comments and questions from people who are actually watching on the Full Life Communications page from either YouTube or Facebook. I love that you're watching, and if you're watching a shared feed, great, keep watching. But if you want me to read and read aloud your comment or your question, you have to watch from my page, Full Life Communications, on either YouTube or on Facebook. Just want to put that out at you because I don't want you to think that I'm ignoring you. It's like, hey, I put these questions and comments up there and she doesn't see them. I don't see them unless you're watching from my page. And again, the page is Full Life Communications. So back to our topic, when to speak and when not to speak. Let's talk about silence for a second. A lot of times people don't like silence. They get anxious when, we're in a room of people and there's nothing going on, or just as two people talking and we've suddenly hit the silent time. Silence is a good thing. Allow the anxiety to be whatever it is in the moment. Take that time to reflect on what just transpired in the conversation that you had before the silence. Process what that conversation was about. Discern, separate the facts from the emotions, right? And if there's something to deal with, you go back to the table to problem solve and strategize with the facts. You can discuss the emotions as a separate topic, right? Because with the facts, now we can strategize on how we can handle whatever might be the issue, if there's an issue. But silence can be so productive if we don't just jump in there and just interrupt the silence just because we're feeling anxious and we just want to put any kind of thought or words in there to interrupt the silence. So you're just putting words and sentences out there that are oftentimes meaningless just to break the silence because you're uncomfortable. Well, that's not making the silence productive. So to be productive, let me think about what was just said. Let me reflect. What are my thoughts now that I'm taking a moment to reflect? What are my thoughts now on what just transpired? And now that I've taken a moment to reflect, when I come back, I can come back and probably say something that may be more constructive than what I would have just said right off the top of my head, maybe more than likely out of emotion, right? So we reflect, we gain insight, we gain clarity, we process, we parse out the facts from the emotions. All of that is done in silence, plus much more. And those of us who are believers, we know when we're silent, we can hear from Holy Spirit and hearing what he has to say and downloading his mind, taking on the mind of Christ. But if I'm too busy talking, I can't hear from God, because God wants to speak to us too, especially in those moments where you have to make a crucial decision. And he's like, wait, you need Holy Spirit insight here. Back up, take a moment, settle yourself, listen. Use the silence to listen. It'll go well for you if you do. We have a comment here from Fruitful You. Fruitful You says, hello. How do you give constructive criticism to someone who is proud of the fact that they always speak their mind, whether or not people like what they say? Thank you so much, Fruitful You, for that comment. That is such a good comment. How do you give constructive criticism to someone who is proud of the fact that they always speak their mind, whether or not people like what they say? So the constructive criticism, I like to use the word feedback, because criticism doesn't go over well with people a lot of times. They because they hear the word criticism and they're like, and words matter. So instead of using the word constructive criticism, let's use the word constructive feedback. So that's one thing you can do right there, Fruitful You, constructive feedback. Now, giving someone constructive feedback who thinks that they, want to speak their mind regardless of what people have to say. And, they have that right. However, just the things that I've just been saying today, you don't always say something because you can. So I'm not sure, Fruitful You, if you want to give them feedback about them speaking their mind all the time, or you're trying to give them feedback about a different issue, but they just always think they're right to speak their mind. So, I would do some prefacing with a person like that. So laying a foundation of, and this, I'm assuming is, someone, that, I like to have a conversation about, how we communicate. And when you're giving someone feedback, we want it to be a two-way street oftentimes. So it's not just about what you think. Let's have an engaging conversation so the person doesn't feel like you're just attacking them. When you're not really attacking, you're just giving feedback. But a lot of times people aren't comfortable with receiving feedback because of where they are. So it's like, I want to have a conversation, about how we communicate, because I value this friendship. And, and hopefully you do too. And more than likely they do. And so sometimes, and you want to say, sometimes I notice, make I statements as an assertive person. Don't say you always, or you do this, because that is going to put the person on the defensive, and they're going to come back in that defensive posture, and it's going to be an argument. So Fruitful You, own what it is that you're going to say, and say what you have to say using I statements by owning it. I think, then a statement should follow. I feel, then a feeling word should follow. So this sounds like it may be more of a statement that you're making. So okay, she said both. Okay, so, I want to have a conversation about, our communication. Oftentimes or sometimes, and you can fill in the gaps where I may go wrong. I'm just, saying it like this, but the person well. Sometimes when we're speaking, the opinions that are expressed, my feelings aren't taken into consideration. And I know, when we're speaking, and you have the right to say whatever it is, to speak on any topic, just like I do. But excuse me, I would appreciate, again, we're appreciating someone in advance to do something that we're asking them to do, right? So that puts a seed in their mind that they can do it. And I'm appreciating you for being able to do what I'm asking you to do. It's kind of subconsciously makes them feel good, right? So I would appreciate in the future if that when we're having a conversation, some things, unless and again, I'm making up some of the scenario, you have to add what it is that you need to add, Fruitful You. Sometimes if I don't ask for your opinion, I would appreciate if you would reserve your opinion. And not that your opinion doesn't matter, but sometimes I just want to talk, or I just want to vent, or I just want to share a thought about something. And so I'm not always looking for your or someone else's opinion. It's not just personal. We'll say this to someone else as well. Sometimes I'm not looking for another opinion. I just want to speak. I just want to talk. So if in the future, unless I ask for your opinion, if you could reserve your opinion, I would really appreciate that. So that's one way of handling that. Another for because you said it was both categories. Another is say, you're giving this friend, this person constructive feedback. Again, I would preface it again, say, listen, there were some things that I've noticed that and if I can, as your friend, give you some constructive feedback. And you want to ask, is it okay if I give you constructive feedback about something that I notice? So now, more than likely, because you asked, the person is going to say, sure. Like, do you really know? And then again, I'm sure people do, but most of the time when you ask someone if you can give them feedback, they're not going to say, no, I don't want your feedback. Now, they might really be thinking that because, oh my God, what are they about to say? But they're more than likely not going to say it. So they're going to say, sure. So asking to give feedback is key, because now when you give it, then they can't say, of course, anybody can say anything, that you didn't ask. Well, I asked and you said yes. So they gave you permission to give you this feedback. So when they give you the permission, now you state what it is that you want to say. I noticed that oftentimes, you share information, thoughts, or whatever about what's going on. And sometimes as Fruitful You, if you're, giving this person feedback, as I'm reading the room, or even if you're reading me and my vibe, it's really not the time to share what it is that you're saying. And it's not that what you're saying, and I'm still Fruitful You giving the other person feedback. It's not that what you're saying is even incorrect or a bad thing. But sometimes as I'm reading myself and you're talking to me, or I'm reading the room when we're together, sometimes it doesn't go over as well as it would have had you read the room better, or just thought that maybe this is not the time to say what I'm about to say, even though it's constructive and it's good feedback. But timing is everything, right? So you can give that person that feedback by stating something along the lines with your own words, but again, asking first for permission to give them feedback, constructive feedback, and then letting them know from your observation what it is that you've seen and what it is that you think would be better for them to do in the future. As the things that I've just said, reading the room, even though they're correct, doesn't mean you should say it, but reading the temperature of the room is like, oh, this will be better off said later. And also too, and I don't know if it's the how Fruitful You of what they say, you can speak to the how. Sometimes if you're giving them feedback, sometimes I know when you're speaking, your tone is a little bit gruff, right? Or a little bit aggressive, or your volume is really high, and it can come off as angry sometimes. So I wanted you to know that, because as your friend, I care about you, right? And I want to make sure that, I give you feedback as your friend, as I would expect you to do for me. So you would comment on their tone, or whatever the observation is that you see that might need a little tweaking on the other person's part. And that's how you do it. So again, practice in the mirror. Don't just go off giving the person feedback if you're not used to giving them assertive feedback. Practice in the mirror, and as if you're talking to that person, and go for it. And if the person, you have no control of the other person, if they come back on the defensive, you say, it wasn't my intention to upset you. As your friend, I just wanted you to give you feedback because I love you, I care about you, right? And so hopefully, we can continue this conversation, or whatever you're feeling about, let me know. If this is something that you don't want me to give you feedback in the future, please let me know. But that's why I asked you up front, because I didn't want to do anything that you didn't want me to do. And again, you did ask them and they gave you permission. Now, if they don't give you permission, then don't do it, because then that's crossing their boundary. But they did give you permission, so you can always fall back on that. So Fruitful You says, that's very good advice. Thank you, Fruitful You. I'm glad that you appreciated it. And so actually, I've actually said everything with that question that Fruitful You asked. I've actually said everything on my list. We talked about silence. We talked about giving yourself a voice and being assertive, because what you have to say matters. It really does. But timing is key. Reading the room is key. Just because you can say a thing doesn't mean you should say a thing. Wisdom and discernment about when to say it and how to say it. It's not what you say, it's how you say it. So that's the talk for today regarding when to speak, learning when to speak and when not to speak. Thank you so much for joining me today, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, Fruitful You, for your comments and for your question. That was a great question, because many people have that question, I'm sure. So thank you again, ladies and gentlemen, for joining me for today's episode of Life with Sharon Midday Motivation. Join me Monday, which will be April the 4th, 2022. And we're going to talk about how to manage stress with self-care. Stress is going to always be a thing. How much we have it at any given time depends on what's going on in our lives and where we are with things. But we can manage it probably better than we have been. And so we're going to learn some self-care tips to manage stress better. So join me Monday for that conversation. I hope you all have a great weekend. Be safe and enjoy the weekend. Love you all. God bless you. Shalom.